Okay. Let's go.
Perfect. And as it says, everything you need to know about Kubernetes in 5 minutes in 19 slides, because that counts. By the way, I do actually have that email address, awesome@ibm.com. I really do. So let's talk about the first thing first. It's called kubectl because you want to cuddle your Kubernetes clusters, right? And you will alias it to K because writing kubectl over and over again is annoying. So let's talk about the first thing first. Containers. That's what Kubernetes knows about. It knows about, and it says, you can see, you can run multiple containers in multiple different Kubernetes clusters, just like this, where you can have that, and that is the smallest entity that Kubernetes knows about. But that's actually a lie. What Kubernetes knows about are something called pods. Pods can have n number of containers. You can have like one container like pod E over there, or pod B, which has 3. Next one. Timing's off. Deployments. So deployments are actually how Kubernetes makes sure that something is running. So in this case, pod A1 and A2 have a deployment replica of 2. So Kubernetes will always make sure that there are those 2 pods running somewhere inside of his cluster. Nodes. Nodes are actually what runs the Kubernetes. It has basically something called the kubelet on it, and it is just one shared entity. As you can see, Kubernetes is across the whole board there. Next slide. But that's the most important thing you need to know is nodes actually don't matter. Nodes are just a compute thing. The most important thing to understand about Kubernetes is that Kubernetes is just an API to compute. That's all it is. You can actually think of it kind of like a mainframe. So that's it. Important also here, things break, right? Yes? Cool. So when things blow up, just like that pod B, and it pops over and that pod B right there, it'll end up over here, and Kubernetes is smart enough to make it go run again. Same as with the deployment replica of 2. Okay, let's talk about some internal concepts of Kubernetes. Kubernetes K8S is the shortness of it, because there's 8 characters there. K8S, no? Okay, it's supposed to be funny. Okay, let's talk about service discovery, because we all need another DNS server. Kubernetes has a DNS server called kubedns inside of it. And that is actually the YAML you'll need to write the actual service out. By the way, you will be writing a lot of YAML as a Kubernetes user. Namespaces. Namespaces is how you actually cut up a Kubernetes cluster into smaller bits. You can actually run prod, dev, and QA all on the same Kubernetes cluster using namespaces. Node ports. Don't use these, but they do exist. And it was originally designed to be a debug mode, and there's a company that starts with an F and ends with 5, which we're forced to use it more often now. Don't use them. Load balancers. Load balancers you'll see everywhere. And it turns out now you can actually take out the load balancer service and change it in with something like Nginx to do it also. This is where you'll see 95% of the services out there. I will say there are a lot of knobs and dials to turn and read the docs. Okay, the hardest concept inside of Kubernetes is something called an Ingress controller. Now, if you can look here, imagine those three containers right there as pod D is a database. Don't run your databases in Kubernetes, but let's just say that's a database. And you would need it to talk to /data-admin. That's actually how the wiring works. You have a foo web that goes to port 80, and then foo data that goes to port 3000. I normally don't get through that fast. Anyway, let's talk about the ecosystem. Because with everything, there's always an ecosystem around it. Next. Now. Really? Helm. Because we need another fucking package manager, that's what Helm is. It's very straightforward, right? Yeah. Istio. Because I work for IBM, Istio is great. It's something called a service mesh, and it turns out Mofi's going to be doing a workshop with it a little bit later. I'll be in that one to help out too. I have opinions. Knative. I don't know why they didn't call this case serverless, but that's actually the serverless framework that can run on top of Kubernetes. Now, the next slide, if you want to take a picture of it, is a bunch of really good information to have, and I actually have the email address of awesome@ibm.com, and if you email me there, I will actually give you a free Kubernetes cluster for a month on the IBM cloud, because believe it or not, IBM has a cloud too. Thank you.
Yeah, give it up for JJ.